This week, North Korea's Kim Jong Un will visit China for the first time in 6 years to attend a military parade marking the 80th anniversary of World War II.
Kim will be among 26 other foreign leaders in Beijing, including Chinese President Xi and Russian President Putin. Tomorrow is the deadline for Putin to agree to bilateral talks with Zelensky. That's according to Trump.
Yeah, now we're going to bring in retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General, thank you for joining us. Taking a step back here, I know Kim Jong Un being there is a big deal, but this is Russia and China showing a growing warm relationship. Just a week ago, if even, the criticism from President Trump to President Biden was that he had pushed them together. President Trump seems to want to pull Russia apart from China. I don't know that that's working.
No, I don't know if that's working either, but I don't think it's just Russia and China that have developed a growing relationship. But I think you've got to add in North Korea and Iran into the mix. But I think it's important to realize that while there is a growing friendship, that it's not this deep and trusting network of allies and partners that the United States has enjoyed as a unique American advantage for the last 80 years. But it certainly is something for us to keep an eye on because they are or would be a formidable opponent, especially if they combine together.
What does the United States have to do to break up these relationships, in particular between Putin and China?
I think that it's most important for the United States to continue to focus on developing and nurturing this broad and trusting network of allies and partners that we've enjoyed for the last 80 years. In fact, I think it's very interesting that though this meeting in China and Beijing is focusing on the end of World War II, that it's been since the end of the World War II that the United States has created this network that has fostered a free, open, prosperous, and secure world order that has benefited humanity, but also uniquely benefited the United States. And I think if the United States really wants to succeed strategically going forward, then we need to continue to nurture our own relationships, which are far more than just this transactional, superficial set of relationships that they're working on there in Beijing.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have started a war that, or participated in a war that, and funded it, that brought these two together. Maybe we should have done more to make sure that war didn't happen in Ukraine. But that's already happened. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do. There's more stuff going on. You talked about this relationship between China and Iran. Well, they're also involved in Venezuela, which is right here in our hemisphere. And so we're hearing that U.S. guided missile cruiser, another big destroyer, just crossed the Panama Canal to join the other warships that are deployed off the coast of Venezuela. And this, of course, is happening as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to visit Mexico and Ecuador this week to try and deepen ties there. And all of this, there's a lot of tension right now. So what do you see happening? How soon do you see things happening? What do you expect to unfold here with these destroyers off the coast of Venezuela?
This is definitely the largest naval presence that we've seen in decades from the United States here in our own hemisphere. Maybe 8 or so different ships that are now part of this enhanced counter-narcotics operation. But I think this is very reminiscent of President Trump's intent from the very beginning to focus on our own backyard. It's a renewed version of the Monroe Doctrine that says we're going to take care of our hemisphere and we're going to resist outside influence from that hemisphere. And I think by pouring our resources into presence in our hemisphere, we're demonstrating a commitment that we haven't seen in several decades here.
Right, but General, what exactly are the ships going to do? What do you expect to happen? You have President Maduro there, who we've already named a narco dictator. We know he's sort of the head of the snake of this entire narco network. We know he's getting secret ghost ships with oil off to China. And so there's a lot of bad stuff happening. The boats are there. The opposition party is in hiding, more desperate than ever. So what happens next? What's the point of the destroyers?
Yeah, I think for the first part of it, it is deterring and likely interdicting any of that illegal activity over the seas that would be harmful to Americans that are focused on narcotics. But I also think it does put Maduro and Venezuela on the back foot by having to defend against what could be some larger military operation. In fact, I think it's interesting that Maduro has said that he's mobilized 4 million members of his militia. But I think by demonstrating a show of force off his coasts, it's causing him to focus on spending resources to defend against something that I don't think is ever going to happen, and maybe putting the pressure on him and giving the benefit to the opposition that maybe allows something internally to break through successfully in Venezuela.
Yeah, well, his militia includes a lot of grandmas. I don't know how they'll stand up next to the Marines, but that are on those destroyers. But I will say the other interesting point is Russia right now. The conversations with Russia may also be about Venezuela. John Teichert, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, General.
Thanks, General.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.